I'm Rachel Wana.
For more information on the work that we do and how you can help us to help others, please visit our website www.secondchances.org.za.
In Junior Achievement South Africa, its focus is really to expose youngsters within high school and out of school to entrepreneurial thinking. And ours is focused at high school from grade 10 to 12.
I'm very big on youth empowerment and making a difference and touching lives and impacting the lives of our young people. That's practically what I do with my foundation as well, and ever since I was crowned as Miss SA.
The goal of the magazine is to basically share information that will be able to assist small business owners.
You're listening to The Social Show with Viwet Yolwana, live on brandlive.co.za.
Good morning, South Africa. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. I'm pretty sure you're sitting at home right now watching the telly because it is literally going to be really, I love public holidays. In fact, let me just say it. Happy Human Rights Day. Happy Human Rights Day. I hope you're teaching your kids about human rights. I hope you are having, a good debate with people about whether or not we have reached human rights. I know there's so many things that are going on in the country. People aren't just, going to laze around if that's what you were going to do, but people are going to be, debating about their human rights and the activities that, the things that need to change and the things that need to come about so that we can feel free, we can feel like our rights are being heard, and we can feel like we are, valuable human beings in South Africa and around the world. Remember, human rights is a global phenomenon. It's just not South African. However, South Africa does have a unique context to it. But before we start off the conversations about human rights and all that kind of stuff, we're going to start off with the news as usual. Z Africa spent a day at Cosmo Secondary in Johannesburg painting one of the classrooms and establishing a much-needed new science lab for the school. The team, led by CEO Harish Goyal, also took time to talk to grade 12 students and inspire them with a vision for future opportunities. Gail noted that it was a time well invested with young scholars of impressionable minds, educating them on the various career options available within the media and broadcast space. You could visibly see how excited the learners were at the thought of expanding their horizon. Now, Z Africa also embraced the Tembisa Community Hospital under its wing. The hospital in previously disadvantaged township of Tembisa, Johannesburg, was in dire need of upgraded facilities, and Z stepped in to assist with this, in addition to sponsoring medical equipment for its surgical wing. Now, these projects were all done in collaboration with the SA Medical and Education Foundation, also known as SAME, which has identified facilities in underprivileged communities that need urgent assistance. The SAME Foundation is a national non-profit organization specializing in the upliftment of communities through strategic projects in the health and education sectors. Now, in other news, 4 leading designers will be envisioning the Canvax Conscious Environment theme in the form of homestyle installation at this year's Decor District featured at Decorex Durban from the 18th to 21st of March. Now, Wesley Rayleigh Interiors, Redesign Interiors, Even Flow, so it's Wesley Ray Interiors, Redesign Interiors, Even Flow Resources, and My Africa will be participating in this environmentally responsible feature sponsored by Canvix, a product of Expand and Design, dedicated to environmental sustainability as well as social upliftment of local communities. Expand Design has partnered with Uzwelo in support of the Uzwelo bags. Each bag, made with waste material, is uniquely crafted by KwaZulu-Natal women living in impoverished areas. The proceeds then go back to the community, feeding and educating the families of these talented individuals. We want to bring this element of social responsibility through environmental sustainability into the designs of Decor District, explained Kirsty Fonzari, Canvax marketing manager. Each designer is encouraged to use locally sourced products. Lastly, in our news, Net hashtag work BBDO was tasked with creating a campaign for You Do Test, a revolutionary no fuss, no mess way of testing for colon cancer. It's essential as it is one of the top 5 killers in South Africa. Now, the agency decided to go with the statistic-laden scare test, not to go rather with the statistic-laden scare tactics so often seen in health category communications, but rather a more direct approach to motivate age 45 plus sector of the population that is most at risk to be tested regularly. Now, Brad Riley of Net #Work BBDO, as ECD, says health is a very personal concern, so they created a campaign that tells the target audience that they need to care about their code on health, and they can start doing so in the privacy of their own homes because of what your colon does, because of the way that it is screened and the tests work, but importantly because everyone has something or someone they care about. The name of the campaign is #GiveAShit. And I didn't want to say that too loudly because it makes me a little bit off, but that's what it's called. It's Give a SHIT, and the 2-minute video is targeted at 45 plus consumers, both men and women, encourages them to give a date about their health by clicking through the UDO Test website to purchase a non-invasive colon screening test, which can be done at home. With these digital assets, the awareness campaign behind them, Network #Work BBDO hopes to encourage at least 500,000 people who may otherwise have been at risk to know their colon cancer status and have started the journey to remission before the campaign. And strategically, #GiveABoop launched in March and runs through April, which is National Colorectal National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And that concludes our news for today.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Human Rights Day is a national day that is commemorated annually on the 21st of March to remind South Africans about the sacrifices that accompanied the struggle for the attainment of democracy in South Africa. Now, the commemoration sort of provides the country with an opportunity to reflect on the progress made in the promotion and the protection of human rights. And this year, our president will be at I think King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape, which is where I'm kind of from. I'm from the Eastern Cape, and he will be commemorating the Human Rights Day with the people in King Williamstown. Now, in his statement, I know the president said, that the commemorations for this year will be held under the theme, the Year of O.R. Tambo, Unity in Action and Advancing Human Rights, celebrating the contribution of the national icon and the hero, Mr. Oliver Reginald Tambo, in advancing unity in the struggle of liberation. Now, if we all know, we obviously all know that Human Rights Day in South Africa originates from the tragic Sharpeville massacre that took place on the 21st of March 1960, when 69 people were killed by apartheid police during the peaceful protest. And so this year, he's not only highlighting O.R. Tambo, but the fact that he's going to be in King Williamstown, he's going to be also honoring the Black consciousness leader Bantu Steve Biko, and this year sort of marks 40 years since the brutal murder of Mr. Biko by the apartheid state. And I love the fact that we commemorate the people who really got us where we are. I think it's important to remind South Africans as to how many people actually suffered during the time, but more than that, just to remind them that you have human rights today because of these people, and we need to always honor the fact that they died, they struggled, they went through a lot to get us where we are now. However, I also have a problem with just commemorating. I think it shouldn't just end there. It should go beyond just commemorating. We should actually have real apparatuses that are really showing and giving a voice to people to say, do you feel like your human rights are being heard? Do you feel like they're not being, upheld? I mean, if you think about the Fees Must Fall movement, which completely sort of went straight in line with what human rights means, and also the kind of constitution we have in South Africa, which is we want to make sure that people have an education, and an education that is worthwhile. We don't want to just throw people in, schools with the greatest gadget, but they're not really getting the access to the opportunities. We want them to make sure that they understand what they're being given, and they are, their rights to knowledge is and rights to education is always upheld. And I think, looking at all of these different things that are happening in South Africa, if you think of what's happening at SASSA now, with this sort of air of not really knowing whether or not people are going to be able to get their social grants at the end of the month, and you think of PRASA and all of these crazy things that have been happening at PRASA and Transnet, and then you also look at, and I always and I hate dwelling on the same thing, but if you also think about the mental the mentally disadvantaged people who sort of died during Life is Many incidents, when they were carelessly being moved from one space to another, when you think of a lot of noise that isn't made about people who are raped, people who go through abuses, women, children who aren't being protected by the law. There's so many different things that are happening in our country where you can feel like human rights is just another emblem that people want to commemorate and want to talk about, but they don't really know what it means. People don't really know what their rights are. People don't feel like their rights are being upheld in this country, and it's very important that we not only commemorate those who brought about the conversation of us having rights and the legalities around and the policies around us having rights in South Africa, but we also need to see whether or not there has been movements and there has been situations where our rights are being upheld, and now we feel like, okay, this is exactly what O.R. Tambo was talking about. This is exactly what Bantu Biko was talking about when he said human rights for all, equal rights for everybody. Everybody needs to make sure that they have the same access to education, same access to social welfare, the same access to dignity, the same access to the law. The law is on their side. The law protects them. So I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if we're moving closer and closer to it. I do think the right conversations are being held had by people, especially young people now. I do feel like people are more in tune about their political standpoint, and people have an idea of what's going on. I feel like this past 5 years, young people are really getting in tune with the politics of the country. I feel like a lot of the time we sort of held back because we thought, we had this amazing liberation front and young people who came out. If you think of Sharpeville, you think of all that kind of stuff, you think, that's it that came out of the young people. And I think young people are taking their own rights into consideration, are really trying to change their lives for the better. I mean, I know that also on Human Rights Day in Pretoria, to set the tone rather for Human Rights Day, the Pretoria News and the Centre of Human Rights is set up a huge poster outside the law faculty building on the Hatfield campus and asked students to write messages stating what human rights meant to them in today's context. It's always important to bring it back to today's context. Let's not think about human rights as this big issue that is like associated with apartheid, associated with Sharpeville, but we can also think about it as right now. What are our rights right now, and what does it mean right now to say I have specific amount of human rights that I understand, and I'm from South Africa, and this is how I exercise my voice, this is how I exercise my rights. Do people understand that? So I love the fact that students really discussed their take on human rights and wrote their thoughts on the poster. Some took it very extremely seriously, while others saw a lighter side, using graphics to illustrate their thoughts on human rights. Now, the messages were also written in various languages spoken in Africa. To the students, human rights had a variety of meanings, including a borderless world, which I love that. A borderless world, borderless in every single sense, limitless in every single sense. Others said, we are born free and equal with dignity and rights, regardless of, difference, and peace and dignity. People understand what it is we need. They understand where they are. And when I see students still using art and using different things to really communicate where they think they are in terms of human rights, it makes me happy, because I feel that more conversations need to happen around that. And more conversations not only about who we need to commemorate, but who are we going to be commemorating 5 years from now, because they made a difference in Fees Must Fall, they made a difference in Life is Many. Who are we going to be commemorating 5 years from now for what they're doing today? So it's all about today. Human rights is about now. It's not an old concept. It's not about remembering your rights. It's about exercising them today, right now, for the betterment of the country, for the betterment of the world. Now, a lot of people, don't understand the fact that human rights is not just a uniquely South African thing, although we do celebrate it on a different day. Human Rights Day, the global day, is on the 10th of December. For a lot of countries, that's when but obviously it depends on the context of when they got their rights, when they felt they were honored, their rights were honored. And I love the fact that we've paired it with the Sharpeville massacre, because it is such a 360 moment when you think about what's happening in the country now. So human rights is a global term we hear often, but many people can't really define it. And so the question is, what are human rights? So today I'm also going to give you a little bit on what are your rights. Do you know what your rights are? If somebody said to you, give me 5 rights on the spot right now, what are your rights? Can you say them? We have each person has 30 basic human rights, and based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And today I'm just going to give you a few of those, that if somebody says, trivia, give us a few of your rights, you can speak on it. You can't just be like, I have the right to, because sometimes you get misrepresented and you think you've got rights when you don't have rights. And you have to always know what your rights are, and you have to know them in the right way. You can't just be speaking about human rights and not even know what your rights are. So the rights, I'm just going to give you a few off the top of my head, off of just the kind of ones that speak to me and ones that I think are important. The first is, we are all free and we are all equal. Remember, we are all born free and we all have our own thoughts and our own ideas, and we should all be treated the same way. So everybody is free, doesn't matter what religion, what dominion, where you come from, how rich, how poor, whether or not your family isn't normal and you have a mental disability, you can't walk, you can't talk, you can't hear. We are all equal, we are all free, and we all have the same amounts of rights. We have the right to life. We have the right to life and to freedom and safety. Understand that you are important where you are. In your own, you are enough, and you have every single right to be the best version of yourself every single day. We have the right to use the same law. We have the right to the same law as the richest people. Although I can't necessarily say that that's been something that's been exercised, especially in this country. I feel like when you have some sort of political affiliation, or you're richer, or you've got a little bit more authority, the law does tend to sway your side. And I think that's very, very unfair. And I mean, if you think about, I remember now I was talking to, Christine, I think her name was Kathy, or Christine, I'm so sorry, Catherine from Action Aid, and she was talking about the rights of women and the inequality that still exists and the discrimination that still exists. And I thought about the LGBTI community and how they are always on the wrong side of the law. It always feels like it whenever you hear of somebody, getting corrective, dealing with corrective rape, dealing with, discrimination on that level. You find that a lot of the perpetrators don't get the kind of sentencing that you would give somebody who really did something like that. So there's a lot of issues around the law and the same right we have to use the law to our defense. You are all protected by the law, and the law is the same for everyone and must treat us all fairly. I don't think that's still something that's happening in South Africa, but we are still fighting. You have fair treatment, in fair courts. So again, the law must make sure that we are treated fairly. I always think the law, policymakers and legislator in its entirety is very important, because that's what's going to really make a difference. That's what's really going to make you win or not win. That's what's really going to make a difference in the end of the day. If you feel like the policies aren't on your side, aren't being, aren't upholding the kind of human rights that they need to, you need to speak up, because that's where the change is. The change needs to be in policy and in legislator, because that's where the change comes from. So we all have the right to privacy. Nobody should try to harm your name. Nobody has the right to come into your home, open your letters, bother you without any good reason. I know we have some crazy neighbors, and sometimes you're not sure if you're safe or you're not, but remember, you have the right to your privacy if you feel like you're being cyberbullied. And I really think that actually just speaks to the fact that if people hacking, people getting into your information. I know now Ster-Kinekor just went through such a huge hack, and everyone's privacy is literally at the hands of these people who have all the information of, the people who have Ster-Kinekor subscription. So if you do, please do remember to change your password and your email, because they are the people who have your information because of that hack. So we have the right to privacy, and people have the right to stand up and say, why didn't you guys prevent this, and why didn't you make sure that you had better systems in place so that our privacy can be protected? And I think that's one of the ways in which people can exercise their right. You have the freedom to move. You can go anywhere in the world as long as you obviously have the money. But you have the freedom to go anywhere, nowhere. You are not prohibited by anything to go and move to a country and travel as you wish. Marriage and family. Every grown-up has the right to marry and have a family if they want to. Men and women have the same rights when they are married and when they are separated. Now, this goes again into the LGBTI community, which we're still struggling in our country to get them, to get them married, to get them legally, to get their own ceremonies. I know, the issue of being gay and being bisexual is still huge in Africa, and it's still illegal in a lot of places. And remember, your human right, your basic human right, when you think about it on a global scale, is to marry and have a family with whomever you want in whatever way. And until we can say that and feel it and understand it, that anyone can marry anybody, doesn't matter what the concept is, we still don't have that right. And I think if we think of it in that way, we are more likely to change it and really fight against it. And I know every single year there's a lot of uprisings regarding that specific fact. We have the right to nationality. We all have the right to belong to a country. You have the right to your freedom of thought, to say what you want. Obviously, it's a difficult one because it borders between hate speech sometimes and freedom of thought. But at the same time, you can speak your mind in the way that you feel free to in whatever way, as long as it's not harmful and it's not going to perpetrate violence in other places, and that's what also is an issue with a lot of the churches that speak about the unlawfulness of the LGBTI community, and of course they have the right to say it. They have the right to freedom of speech. However, it must be conducive, and it must be and it mustn't have hate speech. And sometimes it borders on hate speech, and sometimes it's very difficult to call out someone in authority when they are blatantly diminishing your rights to be, diminishing your rights to love whoever you want to love, to marriage, to children. So it's very important that whatever ways we want to be free in our thoughts, whatever ways we want to be free in how we speak and how we communicate with people, we aren't inciting violence, because that's also, you are infringing on somebody else's rights. Do not infringe on somebody else's rights. Whatever your rights are, they're not meant for you to feel like you now are a god and you have every single right to say whatever it is you want, to do whatever it is you want. You can do it as long as it doesn't infringe anyone's rights. That's how I see rights. Do whatever you feel, work in the way that you feel, make sure that no one else is at the back end of you trying to exercise your rights, because that's also taking away someone else's rights. So you have the right to play. We got the right to rest and work and relax. This is why, you're given specific days off at work where you can either take off, or you can, have one day, some people use actually this weekend as a long holiday, and it's okay. You have the right to that. You have the right to education. Now, again, education is a right. Primary school should be free, and we should learn about the United Nations and how to get on with others. Our parents can choose what we learn as well. So you have very important that we know that we have that right to education. Education should be free. We're still fighting that. Education should be free. We don't know how it's going to work out, but education should be free. We have workers' rights, and every grown-up has the right to a job, to a fair wage, and for their work, and to join a trade union again. I had a really great discussion with Miss Sharon from HSS, and what they do is that MSS, Millennium Solutions, and basically what they do is they make sure that human rights is a big part of their HR resources. And a lot of the time you find that people at work try to take advantage of you by not giving you a contract, not giving you UIF, not really listening to, the worker in a way that is conducive to the worker, and the worker feels like their rights are upheld. So it's very important that you understand your HR rights as a worker. You understand that this is what things you can and cannot do, and you understand that you have some sort of power and agency to speak if something isn't okay. Just because they're paying you doesn't mean you don't have the right to a fair wage, a fair space to work, rights within your office. It has to be conducive to how you're going to be able to work. There mustn't be any discrimination, whether it be racial, whether it be sexual, whether it be because of the kind of religion you're in. It doesn't matter. You all have workers' rights, and you have to know. A lot of people don't know that they have really, really amazing workers' rights. Also, the right to social security. We all have the right to affordable housing, medicine, education, childcare, enough money to live on, and medical help if we are ill or old. Remember, you have the right to, if you are dying, to be sent to a hospital, regardless of whether or not you have, the funds or not. We can't be a country that watches people die because they don't have the money. And you find that a lot in rural areas where they don't even have the money to go to hospital, but there aren't any hospitals there, and there's been a big influx of mobile clinics, mobile testing centers that have been going through rural areas just to give them the access, and it's free, and you just sort of really helping people who can't access the medical facilities and are really suffering. And I love that. And I think there's a lot of different things that the country can do to help more people realize their rights, feel their rights, live in their rights, live in the truth of their rights. And a lot of things are being done by a lot of corporate companies, and we commend you, and we really hope that it picks up. We make sure that we aggressively so give people the opportunity to access education, the opportunity to access dignity in terms of sanitation. So many sanitation projects happening now. People have a good understanding of how their rights are being maintained and how their rights are being safeguarded. And I feel like there's a lot of insecurity around that in South Africa, and I just wish you all a beautiful day. I wish you a day where you understand your rights, you teach your kids about your rights. So maybe you go out for a walk. I know there's a lot of human rights walks going on, a lot of human rights debates at Apartheid Museum and such. For some stuff is happening in Roodepoort, and a lot of stuff happening all around the country. I really hope you do engage, and you don't just lay around, but you also exercise your right to work and to play, but also your right to information and to being a good human being, and being a human being that feels valued in this country, in this time. And that's all from us from The Social Show. We'll catch you all again tomorrow.